Taurus, there is something about you like warm earth after the rain. Calm, steady, nurturing. You walk into a room, and others feel at ease, without quite knowing why. You listen without interrupting. You give without the need to display it. Your kindness is not loud, it has roots. But beneath that gentleness lives an ancient strength, something unmoving, a gate that only opens when someone mistakes your softness for weakness. Today, we will uncover 20 truths they never tell about Taurus, about why the kindest soul is often the one with the most sacred boundaries. Stay until the final truth. Because number 1 will not only surprise you, it carries a profound lesson about trust and dignity. Before we begin, leave your zodiac sign and your birth date in the comments. Taurus, I want to see you. I want to feel this steady energy gathering here. Let us begin the countdown. Reason 20. The most dangerous thing about you is not your anger. It is the moment you no longer believe Taurus. People fear you when you are angry. But what they should truly fear is when you are still there, still speaking, still smiling, yet you no longer believe. Because when a Taurus loses trust, it is not an emotion. It is a silent earthquake, no noise, no instant collapse. But the foundation has shifted forever. You are not someone who gives trust easily. You do not open the door of your soul for a few beautiful promises. You observe. You test time. You let consistency prove another's worth. To you, trust is not a passing feeling. It is a commitment. It is the decision to place your whole heart into someone's hands without keeping a hidden exit. And once you trust completely. You do not love with one foot outside the door. You are not half loyal. You love like a mountain standing still in the storm, unmoved, just because the wind changes direction. That is why, when that trust is betrayed, what is lost is not love. Listen carefully to this. You can still love. You can still care. You may even forgive, but the stone gate that leads into your soul closes, and it never opens the same way again. There will be no dramatic argument, no grand scene, just a very small shift, very subtle, but permanent. A thin layer of distance appears. A portion of the light you once gave freely is held back, not because you are bitter, not because you seek revenge, but because you understand something deeper than most people do. There are cracks that can be repaired. But the original structure has already changed, and Taurus, you do not pretend that everything is still intact when it no longer is. People call you stubborn. But the truth is, you are loyal to reality. You do not return to innocence once you have seen the truth. You evolve. You become more aware, deeper, steadier. What makes you special is not that you are never wounded. It is how you are wounded. You can hurt without becoming cruel. You can be disappointed without turning harsh. You can walk away without destroying. You do not shatter everything. You simply withdraw the right to touch the most sacred part of you. And that is what lingers in others for a lifetime. Because they once touched something rare, a loyalty without condition, a heart that held no escape route, but they were not mature enough to protect it. There is a paradox here. You do not become cold when trust breaks. You become clear. You do not close your heart to the whole world. You simply do not offer the same innocence to the same person in the same way again. That is not punishment. That is a sacred boundary. And here is the deepest truth not only for Taurus, but for all of us. Trust is not something that can be demanded. It is a grace. And when a steadfast heart like yours offers it, it is a gift not everyone is strong enough to hold. Taurus, you are not too sensitive when you cannot return to who you were before. You are not too strict when you cannot forget the feeling of betrayal. You are simply faithful to your truth. In a world that easily pretends everything is fine, you choose to stand on truth, even when it leaves you alone. And that is strength, because when a Taurus loses trust, you do not lose love. You reclaim your soul. And once you have reclaimed it, no one can touch you the old way again. That is not coldness, it is awakening. And that is why you are not merely the sign of stability. You are the symbol of loyalty with sacred conditions and boundaries that cannot be crossed twice. Reason 19. You do not react immediately, you remember. Taurus, what makes people misunderstand you is that they think you don't notice. They believe you are too gentle, too slow, too quick to let things slide. But they fail to understand something very dangerous. You do not react right away. You remember. You are like the earth. Every footstep that crosses you leaves an imprint. You may say nothing when you are overlooked. You may smile when you are treated without respect. You may remain silent when someone crosses the line the first time. But your silence is not forgetting. It is storing. You observe how people behave when they think you are not watching. You listen to how they speak when they assume you will not remember. You feel the shift in energy, even when they try to mask it with sweet words. And you do not need to make noise to prove it. You simply record, not to seek revenge, not to calculate, but to understand the truth. Because for you, loyalty is not built on words. It is built on consistency. And when you see a pattern repeat, once may be a mistake, twice may be carelessness, 3 times is character. You do not need more evidence. That is when the foundation begins to crack. You do not shout. You do not accuse. You do not turn everything into a battlefield. You simply shift that person's position in your heart. And that shift is quiet but absolute. You teach us something profoundly sacred. Maturity is not reacting the moment you are wounded. Maturity is watching long enough to see the truth clearly. And once a Taurus has seen the truth, you do not return to blindness. Not because you are cold, but because you honor yourself. You do not forget how people treated you when you were vulnerable. You do not forget who stayed when you had nothing to give. You also do not forget who disappeared when you needed them most. You remember, not to hold resentment, but to avoid repeating the same mistake. And that is why, when you walk away, others are often stunned. They thought everything was fine. They did not realize you had seen the signs long ago. And when the mountain finally moves, it is not the decision of a single day. It is the result of countless moments you chose silence. Reason 18. Your silence is not weakness, it is power gathering itself, Taurus. There is a moment in you that is the most dangerous of all. Not when you are angry, not when you argue back, but when you become silent. Because when you are silent, you are not surrendering. You are concentrating. People are used to explosions. They know how to handle loud anger. They can respond, debate, defend themselves. But they do not know what to do in front of a Taurus who turns cold and still. That stillness is like the hush before an earthquake. No sound. Yet everything underneath is shifting. You do not speak much when you are hurt. You retreat inward. You think. You weigh your heart carefully. You ask yourself, is this still worthy of my energy? And that question is the turning point. Because if the answer is no, you do not need to argue. You simply change direction. People often think you are passive, but in truth, you are profoundly intentional. You do not waste your energy on meaningless battles. You do not prove your worth to those who refuse to understand. You simply withdraw your presence. And that withdrawal is stronger than any accusation, because when you stop speaking, you also stop investing your emotions. And when a Taurus stops investing, the warm current that once nourished that relationship begins to dry up. No noise, no drama. Just a quiet emptiness slowly spreading. You teach us that not every battle needs to be won. Some of the greatest victories are walking away from where you are no longer valued. Your silence is not avoidance. It is self-mastery. It is the ability to sit with your own emotions without allowing them to control you. It is pure emotional strength. And when you have been silent long enough, when you have reflected deeply enough, your decision will no longer waver, not because you are stubborn, but because you have weighed it with both heart and mind. And when a Taurus has decided in silence, the mountain does not need to roar, it simply stands there, steady, unmovable. Reason 17. You do not expose others, you simply disappear. Taurus, you know so much. You know who is pretending. You know who is taking advantage. You know who speaks one way while thinking another. But you do not expose them. And that is exactly what makes you different. Many people, when wounded, will lay everything out in the open. They want the truth displayed. They want justice to be seen. And you choose to walk away, not because you are weak, not because you fear confrontation, but because you understand something profound. To expose someone requires you to remain standing in the same space with them. And if that place is no longer worthy, you refuse to spend even one more drop of your energy there. You may hold secrets powerful enough to make someone crumble. You could speak words that would leave them humiliated. But you do not, because you do not need to lower another to prove your worth. You simply disappear from their reach. And that disappearance sometimes hurts more than any exposure ever could, because when you leave in silence, the other person will never truly know how much you saw, how much you understood, and how many times you had already forgiven them before that. You carry it all with you, and quietly close the stone gate behind you. No noise, no drama, just an emptiness that can never be filled. You teach us a deeply mature lesson. Not every truth needs to be announced. There are dignities that can only be preserved through silence. You do not destroy another person's honor. You safeguard your own. And when a Taurus chooses to walk away instead of exposing, it is not defeat. It is the victory of self-respect. Reason 16. When you become cold, it is not that you have stopped loving. It is that you are gathering your strength, Taurus. People are used to seeing you warm. They are familiar with your gentleness, with the way you hold others up, with the steady current of emotion you bring into every room. But there is another version of you that very few have the patience to truly understand. The silent one. Still. Cold. When you are deeply wounded, you do not burst into flames like fire. You freeze. And that coldness is not because you no longer feel. It is because your feelings have become so powerful that you must gather them inward. Like a mountain covered in snow, not because it is weak, but because it is accumulating weight. You do not shout. You do not create chaos. You become precise. Every word is carefully weighed. Every decision thoughtfully measured. You no longer act from raw emotion. You act from your values. And that is when you become most unshakable. Others may react in anger. They may speak words they later regret. But you step back. You assess. You decide. And once your decision is made, it rarely shifts. Your coldness is not cruelty. It is self-mastery. You understand that emotion is power, but only when it is guided. You teach us something profoundly deep. Emotional strength is not about crying the loudest, nor raging the fiercest. Emotional strength is the ability to sit still in the middle of a storm without allowing the storm to command you. When you become cold, it is the moment you return to your center. You have not lost love. You have simply stopped allowing love to blind you. And when a Taurus has found balance within herself once more, the mountain no longer trembles. It stands there, steady, and no one can move it with a wave of impulsive emotion. Reason 15. Your patience lasts longer than others realize, but once it ends, there is no second time, Taurus. People often misunderstand you in this. They think you will always be there, always forgiving, always willing to offer one more chance. And yes, you do give chances. You do not walk away over a single mistake. You do not end things over one misunderstanding. You do not tear down what you have built because of one bad day. You believe in time. You believe in repair. You believe in the human capacity to change. But what they do not know is this. Each time you endure, you do not forget. Each time you forgive, you do not erase. You are measuring, not with anger, but with value. You quietly ask yourself, is this still worthy of my energy? Am I building something, or slowly eroding myself? And when the answer begins to lean toward the second, something very dangerous happens. You do not explode. You do not warn. You simply stop trying. And that is the moment it truly ends. Because when a Taurus is still patient, you are still investing. But when you stop investing, everything collapses from the inside. People are often shocked when you leave. They say, "Why so sudden? Why didn't you say something?" But they do not understand. You have said it many times already, through your silent endurance, through your tired eyes, through the energy you slowly began to withdraw. Your patience is like a deep lake. From the surface, it seems endless. But if someone keeps drawing from it without ever pouring back in, one day, it runs dry. And when the lake is empty, you do not dig it open again from the beginning. Not because you are cruel, but because you understand one sacred truth. Love requires reciprocity. Respect must be protected. You teach us that patience is not unconditional suffering. Patience is giving someone the space to grow without trading away your own soul to do so. And when a Taurus's patience comes to an end, it is not impulsive. It is a decision weighed through many silent nights. Reason 14. You protect what you love like sacred ground. Taurus, there is something deeply primal within you. You can be gentle with the whole world, but with those you love, you become a fortress. You do not make noise about it. You do not announce yourself as a guardian, yet you watch, you stay close. You are ready to step forward when the moment calls. You protect your family, you protect your friends, you protect those who stood beside you when you were at your weakest. And what makes you extraordinary is this: you do not protect out of ego. You protect out of loyalty. There is something sacred in the way you guard what is yours. Like fertile land, not everyone is allowed to enter. Like a mountain, not everyone can climb to the summit. And if someone dares to harm the one you love, you do not need to shout to prove your strength. You simply stand in front, steady, unmoving. You do not seek conflict, but you do not step away from it when it becomes necessary. And it is that calm that is truly formidable, because you do not act from fleeting anger, you act from your core values. You understand something very deeply. Love is not only a feeling, it is a responsibility. And once you have chosen someone as your own, you do not easily let them fight alone. But there is another side. If the very person you protected betrays you, that sacred gate will close faster than anyone could imagine. Because you do not only protect others, you protect yourself as well. You teach us that loyalty is not blindness, it is a conscious choice. And when a Taurus loves and protects someone, it is not a soft, passing affection. It is a vow that does not need to be spoken aloud. But when that vow is broken, the mountain does not crumble. It simply no longer opens its gates. Reason 13. You do not react, you respond, and that difference changes everything. Taurus, most people are used to living in reaction. Poked, they fire back. Hurt, they explode. Challenged, they rush to prove themselves. But you step back. And that very step back makes you more formidable than they imagine. You do not let your emotions drag you away. You do not speak just to release your anger. You do not act while your heart is still pounding wildly. You wait, not because you are weak, but because you understand the power of timing. You are like a chess player. You do not move simply because your opponent provokes you. You study the entire board. You see the consequences. You think in long arcs. You weigh what is worth holding and what is worth releasing. And when you finally act, it is not a reflex. It is a decision. Others may win an argument, but you often win the final outcome. Because you are not only thinking about today's emotions, you are thinking about tomorrow's stability. You teach us something profound. Strength does not lie in reacting the fastest. Strength lies in responding the truest. Some people speak endlessly and weaken themselves. You speak little, but every word carries weight. Some act in chaos. You act when your mind has grown still. And when a Taurus has made a decision after long reflection, it is very difficult to sway. Not because you are stubborn, but because you have walked through enough perspectives to be certain. Your calmness is not indifference. It is emotional discipline. And in a world overflowing with impulsive reactions, the one who knows how to respond is the one who truly holds the game in their hands. Reason 12. You do not chase anyone, you become the value that draws others closer. Taurus. You were never meant to run after anyone. You were never meant to beg. You were never meant to prove that you are worthy. And perhaps you never even wanted to be good at that. Because deep within your soul, you understand something that many people spend a lifetime trying to learn. True value does not have to chase anyone to be recognized. You do not make yourself louder just to be seen. You do not reshape who you are just to fit inside someone else's expectations. You build. You build your career. You build your character. You build a quiet stability within yourself. And when you are grounded enough, others are naturally drawn in. Not because you plead, but because you radiate safety. You are like fertile soil. Anyone who comes near feels the urge to plant their seeds. Yet what matters most is this. You do not chase those who walk away. If someone cannot see your worth, you do not run after them to explain it. You step back. And that stepping back is not arrogance. It is self-respect. You understand that if someone must be overly convinced to stay, then they never truly intended to stay. You teach us a quiet, profound truth. Love should not begin with one-sided pursuit. Respect should never begin with diminishing yourself. You do not chase because you believe in reciprocity. If someone wishes to enter your world, they must walk in on their own 2 feet. And if they choose not to walk, you continue building your life. Because you understand this, the right person will never require you to chase them. They will pause. They will move toward you. And in that steady, unhurried strength, you do not simply attract others. You attract those who are worthy. Reason 11. Your boundaries are not walls. They are sacred architecture. Taurus. You do not set boundaries carelessly. You are not the kind of soul who builds walls over a single disappointment. You do not close doors because of a fleeting emotion. When you say enough, it has been contemplated for a very long time. Your boundaries are not panic-driven defenses. They are structures built from lived experience. Every time you were hurt, every time you were overlooked, every time you had to heal yourself in silence, another stone was placed into that sacred design. Because you understand something deeply. Without boundaries, kindness is drained away. Without limits, loyalty is taken for granted. You do not set boundaries to push people out. You set them to protect what is precious within. And when someone crosses a line, you have clearly spoken, it is no longer accidental. It is a choice. And you are exquisitely sensitive to choices. You do not need to shout to protect yourself. You simply change access. No more conversations as deep as before. No more priority as before. No more special place as before. You do not punish. You restructure. Like an ancient temple, not everyone is permitted to step into the inner sanctuary. You teach us something profound. Being kind does not mean allowing others to wound you again and again. Boundaries do not make you cold. They keep your heart from being worn down. And when a Taurus says, "This is my limit," it is not a threat. It is the final notice. Reason 10. When you withdraw, it is not defeat. It is the preservation of your energy. Taurus, you do not crave noise. You do not seek out meaningless battles. You do not argue simply to prove that you are right. And so, when you step back, people often assume you are weak. They believe you have given up. They think you are not strong enough to confront what stands before you. But there is something profound about you that they fail to understand. You do not withdraw because you are afraid. You withdraw because you have already evaluated the cost. You ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Am I building something here, or am I merely wasting myself? And if the answer is waste, you quietly walk away. No drama. No announcement. Just a decision made in deep stillness. You understand that energy is your most sacred currency. You do not spend it on those who refuse to listen. You do not pour effort into relationships that offer no reciprocity. You are like a river when the path ahead is blocked by hardened stone. You do not try to break yourself against it. You change direction. And the beautiful truth is, when you change direction, you are still flowing. You are still growing. You are still alive. While the other remains frozen in their pride, you teach us that not every battle deserves your presence. Not every provocation requires your reply. Some of the greatest victories are simply the preservation of your inner peace. When a Taurus withdraws, it is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you have chosen growth over ego, and once you leave a place, you do not return because of the noise behind you. You continue building your world ahead, steady, enduring, without the need to look back. Reason 9. You feel more deeply than you ever show. Taurus. People often think you are strong because you rarely speak of your pain. They see you calm. They see you composed. They see that you are not easily swept into chaos. And they conclude that you are not deeply affected. But what they do not know, you feel everything more deeply than they could ever imagine. You do not react the moment you are wounded, but you store the feeling in every cell of your being. You do not cry loudly in front of others, but you can lie awake for hours, turning over a careless sentence in your mind. You do not open your heart easily, but when you do, you offer an entire ocean. And an ocean is not loud every day, but it is deep, very deep. There are things others forget after one evening. You may carry them for years, not because you cling to resentment, but because you live with emotional depth. You are not shallow in love. You are not shallow in trust. You are not shallow in loyalty. And therefore, you are not shallow in hurt. What makes you extraordinary is not that you do not feel pain. It is the way you endure it. You do not turn it into a weapon. You do not use it to manipulate. You do not cast yourself as a victim. You process it quietly. You heal quietly. You rebuild yourself quietly. And each time you do, you become stronger, more seasoned, more rooted. People see your steadiness without ever knowing how many times you have been reborn in silence. You teach us something profoundly sacred. Emotional depth is not a weakness. It is strength when you know how to master it. And you, Taurus, master it with the steadfastness of a mountain and the depth of an ocean. Reason 8. When you see someone's true nature, you can never unknow it. Taurus. You give chances. You do not rush to label someone as bad because of one mistake. You believe in circumstances. You believe in the possibility of change. But there is an invisible boundary, a very small moment, so subtle, when you see someone's true nature, not through what they say, but through how they behave when there is nothing left to gain. When they think you are not paying attention, when they believe you will forgive forever, and once you have seen that everything changes, you may still smile, you may still be polite, you may still maintain the connection. But inside, the structure has shifted. Trust is no longer naive. Priorities are no longer unconditional. Their place in your life has been quietly adjusted. You do not need to announce it. You do not need to explain it. You simply never look at them with the same eyes again. And that is something that cannot be reversed, because you understand one thing. When someone shows you who they are, you believe them. Not because you are rigid, but because you honor truth more than temporary emotion. You teach us that love does not mean closing our eyes. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting someone's nature. And when a Taurus has seen clearly, you are no longer easily manipulated. You do not return to innocence. You move forward with clarity. A mountain does not need to move to prove its strength. It simply stands there and no longer opens a path for unworthy footsteps. Reason 7. Your loyalty is not loud, but when it is gone, it leaves a space no one can replace. Taurus, you do not announce your loyalty. You live it. You do not say, "I'm always here for you," every day. You simply are there. When others walk away because things become difficult, you remain. When people fall silent out of fear of being involved, you stand beside them. You do not love as an experiment. You do not connect in temporary ways. When you choose someone, you choose for the long road. And what makes you different is this. You are not loyal only when everything is smooth. You are loyal when everything begins to crack. You stay on the weary days. You stay when someone is at their weakest. You stay even when you yourself are hurting. But there is something few truly understand. Your loyalty is not without limits. It is sacred. And what is sacred cannot be dishonored too many times. When you realize your loyalty is not returned, when you see yourself protecting someone who would never protect you, something profound shifts. You do not shout. You do not create a storm. You simply withdraw. And that withdrawal is unlike anyone else's. Because when a Taurus withdraws their loyalty, the other person does not just lose someone by their side. They lose a foundation. They lose the one soul who would not have left when they were at their lowest. And that empty space is not easily filled. You teach us that loyalty is not endless endurance. Loyalty is standing beside the one who is worthy. And when you stop standing beside someone, it is not because you no longer love. It is because you have finally understood they were never truly standing beside you. Reason 6. You love peace, but do not confuse that with weakness. Taurus, you do not enjoy conflict. You do not go searching for drama. You do not feel the need to prove your strength. You cherish stability. You cherish serenity. You would rather build than destroy. But there is something people often forget. Your gentleness is a choice, not a lack of power. You are like a mountain beneath a quiet sky. Yet, if someone keeps testing you, keeps crossing your boundaries, keeps pushing you to the very edge, you do not collapse. You harden, not in a reckless way, but in a way that cannot be moved. You do not react the moment you are provoked. You offer chances. You warn through your silence. But when the line is crossed too far, when you realize respect is no longer present, you are no longer soft. And that is when others finally understand. They were mistaken. You are not someone who can be bullied. You are simply someone who does not seek war. But if you are forced to choose between peace and self-respect, you choose self-respect. You teach us something profoundly powerful. True strength is not found in constant fighting. It is found in knowing when to fight. And when a Taurus decides to rise, it is not a fleeting outburst. It is the result of countless times you have endured in silence. Like a stretch of earth that appears calm, but when it begins to tremble, no one can stop it. You love peace, but you are not afraid of war. When it becomes necessary to protect what you value, reason 5. You are always the healer, but rarely does anyone ask who is healing you, Taurus. There is a role you often take on that no one ever assigned to you, the steady one, the strong one, the one who says, "I'm fine." When others fall apart, they come to you. When others feel lost, they need you to stand firm. You listen for hours. You hold their heavy stories in your arms. You stay calm so someone else can lean against your strength. And you do this not out of obligation, but because this is simply the shape of your heart. You cannot turn away from the pain of someone you love. You cannot walk away when a soul needs a shoulder to rest on. But there is a truth rarely spoken. The one who is always the refuge also has days when she longs to be held. It is not that you are never tired. You are just not accustomed to making noise about your exhaustion. It is not that you are never hurt. You simply do not wish to become another weight on someone else's back. And sometimes, you forget that your own heart needs tending too. You teach us that strength is not the absence of need. Strength is choosing to love even after you have been wounded. But the lesson meant for you, Taurus, is this. You were not born only to heal others. You deserve to be healed as well. Not through silent endurance, not through bracing yourself alone, but through the gentle grace you offer to yourself. Because when the healer is cared for, her strength does not diminish. It deepens. And when you learn to place yourself beside those you have saved, you do not become selfish. You become balanced. Like fertile soil, it cannot keep nourishing life if it is never watered. Reason 4. You do not close the door out of anger. You close the door when hope is gone. Taurus, People think you leave because you are angry. They think you walk away because of pride. But the truth is entirely different. You do not leave while there is still hope. You do not close the door while you still believe things can be saved. You are the one who stays the longest. Longer than you should. Longer than anyone realizes. You give one more chance. You try to speak one more time. You endure one final time. And then, there is a very quiet night. No one knows. There is no drama. No climax. It is simply the moment you realize, I have tried enough. And when a Taurus reaches that realization, everything ends in silence. You do not slam the door. You do not curse. You simply close it. Gently. Decisively. Forever. People often try to return after that. They apologize. They promise to change. But they do not understand that. The door you closed was not because of anger. It closed because trust had worn thin. And when trust has worn thin, you do not rebuild it from the beginning with the same person. Not because you no longer love, but because you cannot love where there is no respect. You teach us something deeply mature. Walking away is not failure. Sometimes, it is the highest act of self-respect. A mountain does not need to move to prove its worth. It simply stops allowing footsteps to erode it. And when you close the door, Taurus, it is not your ending. It is the beginning of a new space, where only those who know how to cherish you are allowed to enter. Reason 3. Your absence weighs heavier than any anger, Taurus. When you are angry, people can argue. When you cry, people can try to comfort you. When you speak, people can respond. But when you fall silent and walk away, there is nothing left to hold on to. You are not someone who enjoys making a scene. You are not someone who turns everything into a battlefield. So when you disappear from a relationship, it does not come from a single impulsive moment. It is born from hundreds of moments you quietly endured, hundreds of times you chose to understand instead of react, hundreds of nights you whispered to yourself, one more chance, and then one day, you are simply no longer there. No more long messages, no more quiet prioritizing, no more silent protection. People often realize your value when they no longer get to experience it. They miss the stability you carried like steady ground beneath their feet. They miss the sense of safety when you stood beside them. They miss the way you always kept your word. But by then, you have already moved beyond the stage of needing recognition. Your absence is not loud, yet it creates a space that is undeniably real. Like when a foundation is quietly removed, everything above it begins to tremble. You teach us something painful yet true. There are those who only learn to cherish what they had when they no longer have access to it. And when a Taurus walks away, it is not a retreat born of weakness. It is the departure of someone who has already tried long enough. Reason 2. Your boundaries are the highest form of self-love. Taurus, you were not born this strong. You once gave more than you should have given. You once believed longer than you should have believed. You once stayed longer than you should have stayed. Life has been your teacher. Each time you were taken advantage of. Each time you were treated as something taken for granted. Each time you had to gather the broken pieces of yourself alone. You did not become bitter. You became clear. Clear about your worth. Clear about what you accept. Clear about what you will never allow again. And your boundaries began to take shape. Not to push love away, but to protect it. You understand that. Love should not make you smaller. Love should not silence you when you are hurt. Love should not require you to sacrifice your self-respect. So when you say no, it is not coldness. It is your dignity speaking. When you withdraw your energy from places that no longer honor you, it is not selfishness. It is self-preservation. You teach us that loving others does not mean abandoning yourself. Boundaries do not destroy connection. They filter out the connections that are worthy. And when a Taurus sets a boundary, it is not an emotionless wall. It is a discerning gate. Only those who know how to cherish you are allowed to enter. Reason 1. You have never been halfway, and that is what makes you the softest and the most dangerous Taurus. You do not know how to love halfway. You do not know how to believe just a little. You do not know how to be just enough loyal. When you choose someone, you choose with your whole being. You do not keep a hidden reserve. You do not prepare an escape. You do not love with the mindset of, let's see how this goes. You love like a mountain standing still in the middle of a storm unmoved, simply because the wind changes direction. And that is why you are extraordinary. Yet, it is also the very thing that makes you dangerous when you are wounded. Because when a Taurus loves with their whole heart, they do not just offer feelings, they offer time, they offer stability, they offer loyalty, they offer the future they once quietly imagined. And when that is taken lightly, you do not shatter. You withdraw. You do not scream about your pain. You do not prove how much you gave. You simply, quietly, take back what belongs to you. Your energy, your priority, your devotion. And when you pull all of that away, the one who remains finally understands. They were once loved in a way so rare it cannot be replaced. There is something very deep within you. You do not love to possess. You love to build. You are not loyal out of fear of losing someone. You are loyal because it is your nature. But when that nature is not respected, you do not change yourself to please others. You change the way they are allowed to enter your life. That is not revenge. That is evolution. You teach us a powerful truth. The truly dangerous one is not the loudest voice in the room, but the one who can love the deepest and still be strong enough to walk away when necessary. Taurus, you are not halfway in love. You are not halfway in trust. You are not halfway in leaving. And because you live so completely when you arrive, you are a blessing. But when you withdraw, you are a lesson. A mountain does not need to move to prove its strength. It simply stands there, steady, silent, and no longer allowing unworthy footsteps to climb to its peak. The Taurus soul oath. Taurus. After all 20 of these truths, one thing is clearer than ever. You were not created to live halfway. You were not born to love with only half a heart. You were not born to stay loyal to someone who does not deserve you. You were not born to shrink yourself to fit inside another person's immaturity. You are the earth, and the earth does not compete for its place. You are the mountain, and the mountain does not have to move to prove its strength. You are the deep ocean, and the ocean does not need noise to reveal its depth. People may misunderstand your silence. They may mistake your patience for weakness. They may see your boundaries as coldness. But the truth is, you are simply protecting what is sacred within you. You love with your whole heart. You believe with your whole being. You stay longer than most would expect. And when you walk away, it is not because you are weak. It is because you are strong enough to choose yourself. If you are a Taurus, and you have ever been called too much, too sensitive, too stubborn, remember this: you are not too much. You are simply too real. And in a world that prefers what is shallow, truth will always make others feel challenged. Keep your loyalty, but give it only to those who cherish it. Keep your warm heart, but never trade it just to be allowed to stay. And remember, the gentlest person in the room is often the strongest when they decide they will no longer allow anyone to cross their boundaries. Taurus, you are not merely the sign of stability. You are the symbol of love with sacred standards, of loyalty with holy conditions, and of emotional strength that cannot be bent. If you see yourself in these words, leave your birth date below. Let the world know that gentleness is not weakness, and steadfastness is a form of love.